The game is to be where you are, be it honestly and as consciously as you know how.
Watch the latest Ram Dass documentary film, Becoming Nobody, on Gaia.com.
Of course, there was fear in losing that familiar identity. But there was always also wonder.
The Gaia.com library supports you with transformational content. See it for yourself and go to Gaia.com/BeHereNow and check out the Be Here Now playlist, curated just for you. Visit Gaia.com/BeHereNow and start your free trial today.
Welcome to the CSM podcast with David Nichtern. Creativity, spirituality, and making a buck. Blending spiritual and temporal realities, joining heaven and earth. We will be talking with a variety of manifestors, individuals who have, in one way or another, clarified their vision, created an offering, and brought that offering to the marketplace. Let's see what we can learn from them as we each move forward towards solving our own life puzzle, facing the challenge of living in the spirit, in the body, in the world, in this time. If you're interested in supporting the CSM podcast, please visit BeHereNowNetwork.com/David.
So, David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and
it's very exciting.
As you know, it's linked with my book, which is out now called Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck.
Yeah, good title.
Yeah, those three topics are kind of intertwined. And I'm having chats with people I consider the manifestors of some of the principles embodied in the book.
Some.
A home run is all three. Double is two, a single is one. And of course, the people reading the book are sometimes people who are trying to get an entrepreneurial venture off the ground, maybe one that has a spiritual flavor to it, like a wellness center or something like that, a yoga studio. And then also pure creative types, you know. People who are interested in linking their creativity with their livelihood piece, which is sometimes a gap for people.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, to put them together.
Oh, it's a home run.
Well, so I want to...
I know when it's not, and I know when it is, and when it is, it's a home run.
When you can put all three together.
Oh, for sure.
That's a home run. Was that what you were referring to?
Well, I was referring to like when you're in line, when your creativity and your work are in line, or they leverage each other. It's doesn't feel like work.
Okay, what does it feel like?
It just feels good. There's no. It feels right. Let's just say that. And for me, not one day feels like work. I don't know what day it is. I don't need a Saturday. I don't need a Sunday. I work a lot, probably more than ever.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of your work life over the last, 10, 15 years or so?
Decades, sure.
Because you've had a very diverse career.
Yeah, I mean, I made the absolute most giant mistake and started as an accountant, which was just ridiculous and absurd.
You were an accountant?
Like I was literally, absolutely an accountant.
At the beginning of your career?
Ernst & Young.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think they were really ready for that.
They weren't ready for you?
No, I don't think so. And I certainly was not ready for it.
Okay.
But it was like a heart versus head decision.
Was that right out of school that you went into that?
I was like, why not become an accountant? You'll always be able to get work, and I can get a job right out of school. And no one stopped me, or I never asked anyone and said, hey, does this make any sense? And someone who would have known me would have been like, are you effing crazy? So I went and did it. And, 15 years I spent in the financial track. And
was that all being an accountant for 15 years?
I mean, I was a financial person for those 15 years. I ended up as CFO of Universal Motown Records.
Within that 15-year period.
Yeah.
So that's quite a step up from being an accountant at EY, right?
Yeah. I was successful at that, and but that was the problem, I kept getting bigger jobs and more money in something I absolutely hated.
So The
it was
thrust.
like a vacuum that was sucking me up, even though I was,
Uh-huh.
I was climbing a ladder and stepping over people as I was doing it.
So the thrust was just more money, or position,
I
power?
mean, I was really trying to get out of it, to tell you the truth, but it just more and more came.
Uh-huh.
And then it started to shift. I got added to that COO of Universal Motown. And then I did start to venture into other areas. I went to my boss in 1999 and said, I think we need to get into the internet. And he said, the internet's not going to amount to anything. And I said, all due respect, you're just old and you don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
And he said, all right, you can have one person. And that grew into 60 million in revenue and 20 people.
And what aspect of the internet? Selling music or
marketing and selling music?
Marketing and selling music.
Yeah.
So you pioneered that for Universal.
Oh yeah, within the label I was in. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a fairly big deal, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, at the time, I don't know.
Yeah.
You could think things are a big deal or not. At the time, they don't feel as big as when you look back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And was also really involved in some of the thinking around Universal's relationship with Apple.
Ah. Okay.
I was pretty involved in that.
In those early days when Apple was starting to put...
Like at the very beginning,
Yeah.
How to do business with them and what it would look like and
Yeah.
all of that. And that led to, I ended up starting to work more closely with the chairman and the vice chairman of the company on digital stuff. And that led to a global digital job, which was fascinating. I mean,
Was that more fun than being an accountant at that point?
Infinitely.
So
more
you were
fun.
enjoying your work more at that point? Or?
I guess. I mean, I think for me, I really did like music. I love music. And I was in music for most of my career. I wouldn't say I got into it because I was one of those record junkies that, but it turned out it was great, and it turned out, I'd worked either with directly or around a lot of very influential artists. But there's something that just wasn't really right. And
What year are we in now, just to get a little reference?
I mean, I knew something was wrong in around 2000.
Oh, okay.
About 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And I ended up standing next to Deepak Chopra at a wedding in India.
Wow.
And
standing next to him? They didn't have chairs? Or?
I mean, we were at some kind of giant posh event.
Oh, wow.
At this wedding. It was his niece and our friend was getting married.
Yeah.
And we struck up a conversation, and he, of course, was interested in putting out a record. And he said he'd send me a box of books. And I was like, don't, because I don't read. And I got home, and on my doorstep was a box of books from Deepak Chopra.
So you ignored your comment.
And picked up the skinniest one. and that was the beginning.
What was it? Do you remember the name of the book?
Seven Laws of Spiritual Success or something, something like that. His big hit.
And did it ring your bell? Was it?
I just cracked wide open. Yeah.
Wow.
I had typed it into my calendar. The entire book. So every day I'd read one small piece of that book.
You typed it into your calendar?
Not really. I had an assistant.
I guess there's no Kindle in those days.
I was an asshole. I had like 2 assistants. I was a self-proclaimed asshole.
And did you follow up with the relationship with Deepak Chopra? Did you ever see him again?
No.
Did you make a record with him?
No.
And it was that one bump, and then that sort of triggered.
We had maybe a little bit after that, but not really. No. I mean, it was. I didn't need it. And that was the beginning of a journey for me that, you just follow your nose kind of thing. And it wasn't like this hard charging spiritual drive, but it was definitely coming from a place of, I know I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And there must be something better than this. And that, I went to Kripalu, I took a course with a couple of nuts, and that really cracked me open. And then from there I did a 2-day with Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock. And then from there, I went straight to a 10-day meditation retreat at IMS with Joseph Golson and Sharon Salzberg. And since then, I've probably done 24 long-term, more than 1 week retreats, and followed a lot of different people. And the results are staggering for me personally. Just internal happiness. Which, it took the better part of 18 years to blow up my old life. It's like a tanker, 2 miles to make a right-hand turn.
So in those 18 years, how much of it did you continue with the livelihood piece that you had, which was working at Universal?
It started, interestingly enough, my big run started to happen after this. I started to let go completely. Things started to change for me in terms of how hard I efforted.
But were you still working at Universal?
Yeah, I would say the biggest trajectory of my change in my career started after this, after that book showed up.
So the more internal alignment you felt, the easier your career path became? Or?
A lot of it had to do with letting go versus thinking you're doing everything. And as I started to let go, more and more came. Very classic.
Sure.
Some of this, run-of-the-mill generic spiritual stuff. The more you let go, the more comes.
But in your case, letting go didn't mean that you didn't have basic skill sets that you'd cultivated over a long period of time.
That's a misnomer that you do nothing and everything comes. That's nonsense.
Right.
It's not that. It's throwing your effort at things, but letting go of the outcome.
That's a good one.
That's a big realization. And
throwing your effort at the project, but letting go of the outcome.
Yeah, it's the outcome where we get caught.
Okay.
But that led to me becoming close friends with Simon Fuller, who created American Idol. We started a venture with him. He and I became friends. He offered me a job. I left Universal to go work there.
What year was that?
I'd say 2009.
Okay, so about 9 years ago.
Yeah. And
you were working for American Idol?
Yeah, I did online voting for American Idol.
Okay.
And online auditions and a whole bunch of other stuff for him. But that lasted only a couple of years. But it was really about seeing him operate as an entrepreneur. Because I really wanted to do that.
Right.
And it was while
you want to move closer towards an entrepreneurial track for yourself?
Yeah, I really wanted to start my own thing.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I had this idea to start a cooking business, and then I had the opportunity to consider it, and one thing led to another, and I got to the edge of a giant 3-meter diving board and head first off the board.
What year was that, just to put it in context?
2011.
So 7 years ago.
Yeah. And that's when everything really started to groove.
And can you just tell us a little bit about the company that you created and what the project is?
It's a company its mission is to help people make something delicious for someone they love.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
Is that part of the marketing
It's
text?
a little too soft for
really make something delicious for someone you love?
That's what the objective is.
Yeah.
And it's about video, because I was a pretty frustrated home cook following recipes. I really didn't know how to cook that well.
Right.
And so I looked at the market. There wasn't a lot of video, and I wanted to build a business around video. So I wanted to work with really, really highly accomplished chefs. And so I put some of my own money in, and some friends gave a little bit of money, and I built a video subscription business that features really accomplished chefs making home-friendly recipes.
The name of it is?
Panna.
Panna.
Panna, like panna cotta.
And if somebody wanted to explore it, how would they? Panna.com or?
It's pannacooking.com.
Pannacooking.com.
Or Panna in the App Store. Just Panna.
Okay. So everybody out there,
Go get it.
check it out.
Well, if you want to make something amazing.
Yeah. I'm sitting
check
up
it
here
out.
with Dave in his office in Manhattan, and the whole back part is a kitchen with some amazing people in there, some amazing looking food.
That's good.
Great vibe, great feeling here.
Well, that's kind of like, it took me a long time to figure out myself,
Mm-hmm.
to tap into my own creativity, to believe, and then
Believe in what?
me.
Yourself. Okay.
Mhm. And then through that also to attract the right people, and then to give them, my management style has morphed a lot over the years. People have under me enormous amounts of autonomy. There's no one I've hired that knows what that is doing the job that they knew before they started here.
No kidding.
No one.
But did they have aptitude and sort of potential? How did you choose them to do it?
I look for people first that have the right EQ,
Mm-hmm.
and then seem, really intelligent,
Yeah.
and then they have to have the passion.
Mm.
And when you have intelligence, EQ, and passion for cooking,
Mm-hmm.
then you throw things at them. We throw everybody in the deep end, and you swim or you don't. I mean, some people haven't made it here, but the people who are here, the team is, it's kind of special. It's a
Now,
pretty
do you
special
need any
place.
consultants for people who have a passion for eating?
No, Dave.
I'm volunteering.
I think we're good there, buddy.
Yeah.
But it's quite nice, and when I pick my head up, Apple picked us as one of the best apps in the App Store 3 of the last 5 years. That's 70 apps out of 100,000 usually submitted.
Wow. And does that have impact on the
Sure.
marketplace?
Yeah.
Did you see immediate?
Sure. I mean, that
Okay.
helps. And the James Beard Foundation picked us this year as best instructional video, which is really nice. That's an organization that's highly respected in the culinary field, so we've gotten respect there. And at this point, we've worked with 70 or 80 of the most accomplished chefs in the country, from Daniel Boulud to dozens and dozens of
So you have
chefs.
video with chefs like Daniel Boulud on your app?
Mhm.
I can put my
Yeah,
little
and-
iPad in the kitchen
and he's your iPhone, and he's making ratatouille. Like,
Oh.
I got Daniel Boulud to do the dishes he grew up on.
It totally sounds like a home run to me.
It's a home run.
Yeah.
It's a home
Who
run.
are some of the other chefs?
Sean Brock from Nashville, Nancy Silverton, Jonathan Waxman, Anita Lowe, Michael Anthony, Michael Solomonov. You may not know the names. If I
Yeah.
mention the restaurants, you know them. And
Yeah, sure.
we probably have the James Beard. We will only work with people who have won a James Beard
Right.
or have Michelin stars. And we probably have 6 or 7 chefs that have won Most Outstanding Chef.
So to be clear about this, I can bring those chefs into my kitchen and give me personal instruction about how to make something delicious for somebody I love.
That's the idea.
Sounds great.
It's good.
That's a really good idea.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Time will tell.
Time will tell. I understand that. So actually, what's interesting so far about it is you had your business chops developed. Like you're a business.
Yeah, I mean, I was a 6-degree black belt in
I was
business.
just going to say you're like a business athlete
Yeah.
by any standards.
Yeah.
And
I've done a lot.
and just by way of full disclosure, when I first met you, you were kind of giving advice to a studio that I was involved with.
Yeah.
And I always viewed you as like, okay, this guy has this piece under his belt.
Yeah, that I got.
And then the real point of departure was to bring together your individual creativity, which is your passion for cooking.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out to be more than that. The product, which has been selected by Apple as one of the best apps in the store, is really me. How it works, how it functions, what it looks like, every detail of it is me. We've made a television show that we sold to FYI called Love at First Bite. It's about couples and stories about how they fell in love and then opened restaurants together. And dishes,
Is that on the air now?
Mm-hmm, and dishes that kind of brought them together.
It's called Love at First Bite.
Mm-hmm.
What network is it on?
FYI, it's part of the A&E family. So I've made some television. I never thought I'd do that. All the video and the way we shoot it, I direct all the video. All the photography, half of it I shot.
Mm-hmm.
So
your arc is really from becoming first getting your black belt in just business principles.
yeah,
Operation.
hardcore, like
Hardcore.
you know, like CFO of
Right.
a huge
of
business,
the
like a
largest
foreign-
record company in the world,
I mean,
right?
one of the bigger labels in like third or fourth largest label, and then kind of really busting out of that into digital, and then basically blowing it all up and going for it.
So you
This was terrifying.
you entered the creative zone, and then you also entered the entrepreneurial zone, like together in one shot.
Which was terrifying.
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, let's say
I
there's
can't
a young
say
entrepreneur
I
out
can't
there.
say I handled it as well then
okay.
as I do now.
Yeah. Well, Dave, one of the reasons I wrote this book is I say in it, I want to save you 10 years of my life. Just
Sure.
sharing the mistakes that I made.
Yeah, it's hard.
So if you were giving advice to yourself 10 years ago, starting this business, what would the advice be? 20/20 hindsight.
It's very simple principles. One is you really have to believe in yourself.
Okay.
I would say two, you have to embrace uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Three, you never know
Mm-hmm.
where it's coming from.
I mean,
You never
yeah.
know.
Uh-huh.
It's a cliche, but I can't even tell you. My company was out of cash. I furloughed the employees. I needed $38,000 to close a $500,000 round. I looked for a month and a half. I gave myself one more week. I flew out to LA. I tried to have some meetings. I couldn't get anything done. Thursday night, Friday, I gave myself till Friday. I was going to shut the company and move on. I went out to dinner with my buddy and one of his college roommates. He's like, tell him what you do. I'm like, bro, I'm done. Let's just drink and I'm dirt on this.
It's Friday night at this point.
And he said, just tell him.
Uh-huh.
And I tell the guy what I'm doing. He's like, well, how much you need? I was like, well, 38 grand. He's like, well, I'll give that to you. And rolled it up, and 3 months later raised $8 million from a big company. After I got that 38 grand and turned the company back on again. Long way around to say, you can't remotely know where the opportunity really is. The only thing you can do is just stay open. Remain open.
So that's
Effort with release of outcome.
and that's what you said to the younger Dave Ellner.
Yeah, maybe.
Now there's also.
I mean, it's tough. There's a sauce. The whole cocktail is cooked. I mean, it was an uncooked Ellner back then, so I don't know. There's a lot of things that had to happen before this could have happened.
Right.
To tell you the truth, it would not have been the same journey for me had I done this before I'd gotten that little box of books from Deepak.
Now, if you were the CFO of your own company now and only fulfilling that black belt, 6-degree black belt role, what advice would you give to Dave, the CEO and creative director, in terms of hardcore business advice, let's say?
Oh, in terms of what you need to worry about?
Yeah, like how, some of the things in the book, just like, was there a good plan? Are you checking in on the numbers? Are you kind of tracking where you're going? Are you ready to adjust and adapt when you need to?
Look, I would say the best thing I've known about any business I've ever managed financially is the plan is just a guidepost. It's really there to just give you something to check against, but all it is a plan.
But should you have one?
Sure. I think the amount of energy you give to a plan depends on the stage of the company. When a company is nascent, the plan doesn't really mean much. So how much energy you kind of hold yourself to that is less important than when a company is past break even and has a history and has a client base and has employees and has a track record. The plan becomes a little bit more important. The longer a company has track record.
As it grows, you need to really
and I think too much energy is put on numbers.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
I think so. I think, for a CEO, I think it's way more important to worry about the creative aspect of the business.
The content.
Whatever you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a content company.
Or service.
Or if you make drugs, make sure you make a great drug. The core of a business is what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO should be really intimately focused on that.
Mm-hmm. I use this metaphor, Dave, in one chapter, the business body, the body as the elements of a business, that the legs are R&D and product development.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation of every business. The heart is your vision of what your, creative vision for the company.
Mm-hmm.
Left arm, marketing. Right arm, sales.
Mm-hmm.
Head, administration. Ears, customer service.
Nice.
And just to make sure that you're not, that those elements are in balance. Because I've seen companies where the marketing was weak, but and also just the extreme value of good salespeople is something that in my professional life I really saw the potency of good salespeople. Good salespeople, I feel, can sell anything to anyone.
Sales starts when you hear no.
That might be your quote. Sales starts when you hear no. You hear that, everybody?
Listen, this entrepreneurial shit is no joke.
Yeah.
And it requires a depth of commitment, will, and effort that is deeper than anything I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be, you have to go at it with a view of there is no possibility of failure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Failure is just not an option.
Mm-hmm.
And I still might fail.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, full commitment, you mean, kind of. Yeah.
Just
full on.
Like a full metal jacket commitment
mm-hmm.
to make it.
And do you think that's what the great entrepreneurs have as one element? I
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not a great entrepreneur yet. I'm one that's working it. I know seeing so far the successes my business has had, it all comes from this unrelenting depth of will that is bigger than most people's levels, and also the capacity to sit in the most chaotic, unknown circumstances. When you've never shot video before, when you know no chefs, when you've never built a technical product, when you've never raised money, when you've never marketed a subscription business, when you've never done any of these things, you stand in the middle of a cornfield, and in every direction you look, all there is corn. There's not a road anywhere. It requires someone who's comfortable trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
You need to really love the aspect of the unknown and trying to put the puzzle together.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like putting puzzles together to be someone who would go do something like this, or you're going to be really uncomfortable and frustrated.
If you bridge that across to living and to relationships and to your spiritual life, would you say that principle underlies all the way through?
I mean, look, I think uncertainty is life.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think the journey to finding your own dharma is just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And following intuition around what you think feels right. And I think that helps with, it certainly has, my life has never been better. And it's never been more different than what it was. And that's after a divorce and a complete radical shift and change in career. And the takeaway isn't it's easy.
Yeah.
Enlightenment or the quest for truth doesn't mean your life is going to be easy. In fact, actually, the work I've done to get to where I sit today from 8 or 9 or 10 years ago is the hardest work I've done. But
some of it being internal work?
All the way around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But changing my life to what I felt would be something that would be more fulfilling and happy.
Mm-hmm.
But the fruit of the effort is a life that's never been better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the most important work you could do, and it has the biggest payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, divorce and all these things, when you know you have to chase truth,
Mm-hmm.
they're terrifying but necessary.
Yeah. And Dave, what would you say the role of formal, let's say, spiritual practices like those retreats that you did, or kind of formal practice? What's the role of that in terms of everything we're talking about? How important is it?
I would say those things were the core.
So it's important.
I would put it above almost anything. I would say that if you think that you can, there are some people that are just generally naturally aware.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed that.
Uh-huh.
But the depths of clarity around the unprocessed stuff of your
Mm-hmm.
psyche and
Mm-hmm.
self, the things that truly fill you up,
Mm-hmm.
a feeling of peace and calm, so you have a sense of what really is true. All of these things are near impossible to find without a long patch of silence.
Mm.
And it's just the silence that does most of the work.
Is that a daily patch of silence too, or is that a retreat patch of silence?
I needed 10 full days to
Right.
find more happiness than I'd ever done on a Four Seasons hotel vacation
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And it was the seeing how my mind worked and seeing the patterns of the thoughts and seeing the peace that I found from eliminating most of life was illuminating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that...
So do you consider that kind of ongoing, regular
activity,
periodic activity?
Honestly, I do not have a regular, quote, traditional practice. Like I don't wake up in the morning and meditate every day.
So you don't have a daily type of practice?
No. But this morning, I spent time watching awareness watch itself.
And how did you do that? Did you leave time for that to be the only activity, or did you do it in the middle of cooking? Or
I was lying in bed
Uh-huh.
and just had a calling to awareness. Called me to let awareness be awareness, and then
while lying in bed.
just laying there looking out the window.
Mm-hmm.
It gets more and more
Yeah.
prevalent in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I've found not making this a project,
Mm-hmm.
another thing to work on,
Mm-hmm.
has been helpful for my personality type.
I see.
And over time, I've learned to trust that it is doing itself.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And, 18 years after I took that first course, I went back and took it again.
Yeah.
And I thought I was
What was the
doing
course?
It's
What
called
exactly?
the Energy Intensive at Equipollo. It's run by Jonathan Faust and Rick Faust, two amazing beings. And
Is that a weekend or a week long?
it's like 3 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Silent 3 days. These guys are mad scientists. They're
Mhm.
effing crazy, and they're amazing at it.
Right.
And they basically, you got no choice but to have something shake off after 3 days with the way they do it. But I went back. I was taking my girlfriend up there so she could experience it. I thought that was the reason I was doing it. But it turns out, I needed it.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of the way spirituality is. You kind of have to stay open there too. You have to be listening really intently, because there's the body and the mind are very intelligent, and they help guide you.
Mm-hmm.
That is the true teacher and the guide, is the body and the mind. And the rest of it is just
But
pointing.
yet there were a couple of teachers at the program. What was their role?
Look, there are people along the way that have completely added value. Adyashanti's a guy for me who's a non-dualist, and that non-dual path for me is really, it's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
It resonates for me, and I've listened to him over the years, and stuff he said 10 years ago for me didn't sink in, and I heard it last week, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I get that now.
Right.
You know, I think spiritual path is like that, where you can listen to someone and you'll hear them talk, and you're like, yep, I've experienced that. Hold on. That's past my boundary of experience. It's probably something that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Just hasn't happened to me yet. And so that's been a pretty amazing.
Yeah. So you've had input from a variety of.
Oh yeah, I
teachers.
mean, I sat with Sokmi Rinpoche.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat with Joseph and Sharon. I've done work with these guys from Kripalu. I sat with another Rinpoche dude. I've done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with a lot of different. I did a self-guided retreat in a hut in the middle of Crestone, Colorado, for a couple of weeks. You know, I've done a lot of different things, and I'm not really looking that hard at this point for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking pretty hard at just trying to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that's true for business as well? Does that apply to being an entrepreneur? Does that apply to creativity? Getting out of the way.
I think absolutely. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that it's all the same. You bucket it and you think it's different, but it's not.
Well, that's
creativity requires. Yeah. Here's the weird thing about creativity. I've never made a thought come.
Okay.
They just come.
Mm-hmm. You mean a creative thought?
A thought,
any kind
yeah. By the way, any thought. I've never. None of these thoughts are mine.
Right.
But the one thing I know
that's a good chapter title too. None of these thoughts are mine.
They're not. You think they are.
Sure.
And you think you're smart because you had a good idea. But whose idea was it really? Yours, the universe's?
Mm-hmm.
Who created that idea?
Mm-hmm.
I have no effing idea, but when I stand in the shower and something drops out into my head, that's grace.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that the more space you give,
Mm-hmm.
the more opportunity there is for that creative thought to happen.
Well, so
That I learned from Simon Fuller.
can you talk a little bit about when you lose track of that and you want to make something happen? Like, it's hard not to want to make something happen when you have a business and money on the line and people and so forth. When you lose track of that, is there a way to kind of regain that view? When you become
I
anxious
think you
about the
need to
result?
have, like with all of even spirituality, experience informs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you've had the opportunity to recognize that sometimes things happen that are beyond your effort,
Yeah.
that informs the muscle that, hold on a second, I should stop efforting a bit, slow down, open, and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the universe will send me something I need. And I have to say that it's the trickiest part of, we were saying this as we were walking to lunch, so I was saying that the line between effort and grace
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is a curious one. But,
Another good chapter title.
yeah,
The line between effort and grace is a curious one.
it is. That'll be in my book. I
It
gotta.
might sneak its way into this one.
I hope not, because I'm writing one.
Are you writing a book?
I think so. Yeah. I have a lot to say about. It's more a memoir probably than a book. Just my journey and what it's been like to go from an asshole to an enlightened asshole.
What's the difference?
In one form, you know you're an asshole. don't.
Dave, I think that might be a good place to wrap it. And I know you're busy, so I don't want to take too much of your time. But
Yeah.
thank you very much. And for those who listening, go get the Panna app and make something delicious for somebody you love. I love that.
If it's still around when
Yeah.
when this podcast releases.
Yeah. Well, and while you're doing that, embrace uncertainty at the same time.
Deeply dive headfirst into the pool of uncertainty.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, David Nichtern.